From Studio 226 in Orlando, this is Aging Smarter. This podcast is intended to explore the intersection of law, aging, and everyday life. We hope to educate. We hope to absolutely amaze you about what's coming. Whether you are aging at age 12, whether you're aging at age 20, whether you're aging at age 25. You know why? Because aging is something we all have in common. White, black, any individual, any ethnicity. No matter how old you are, the one thing we all have in common is that we are aging. Some of us faster than others. Some of us don't think we're aging. But, okay, denial. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. And soon enough, you'll stop that denial and recognize that aging is for all of us. I have here as my guest Shannon Miller. Shannon Miller is the chair of the Florida Bar's Elder Law Section. Shannon has spent decades protecting Florida seniors and vulnerable adults through advocacy, education, and real-world courtroom experience. Shannon, thank you for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
And for being part of this podcast.
Yeah.
You've been involved in some pretty interesting things going on with research on Parkinson's.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about those.
Well,
or tell us a lot about those.
Yeah. Let me start off with a statistic that I think is critically important for people to know. And that is by 2040, right, which is 15 years from now, dementia.
I think I can hang.
I think you can hang too. Dementia will become the #1 killer in the United States.
Holy guacamole.
Yeah. So, dementia, it's like you want to think about dementia as this kind of umbrella, right?
Umbrella term.
And there are all different ways that, you might have a traumatic brain injury that causes
cognitive loss,
deficit disorder. You might have Alzheimer's disease, and there's a blood test for Alzheimer's too. You might have Parkinson's-created dementia. So Parkinson's, we're going to talk about Parkinson's in a minute.
That's like Michael J. Fox, the
yes,
celebrity.
Right. And Parkinson's is one of the fastest growing types of dementia that we're seeing. So Alzheimer's type dementia is first, but Parkinson's type dementia, which often makes it look like Lewy body dementia, right? So Lewy body dementia is it's a unique type of dementia. We also have vascular dementia, but Lewy body dementia is really a tough one because some facilities will not accept people who have Lewy body dementia.
And why would that be?
They can be very disruptive.
I see.
Violent at times. They can often attach to delusions that make them challenging to manage. So a lot of facilities, and so what we're seeing is, out there, a lot of people will be like, don't put in my medical record that I have Lewy body dementia because, it can create a bunch of difficulties for placement, and it can be very challenging for people. One of the good things that we know about Lewy body dementia, and this may sound, a bit harsh, but the reality is the progression of Lewy body dementia to the death event is way quicker than, vascular dementia, which is still quite fast.
Which is basically like a stroke.
Right. Or if you have heart issues, it can also create, just limited oxygen to the brain. Yeah. So it's dementia generally can be very challenging. What we know for a lot of people is that dementia, even though we have these clinical tools to assess it, and I know you just had an expert in talking about, some of the clinical research, and so, I love hearing about that kind of information. But at the University of Florida, we have a lot of brain research studies.
Chance.
Yes. Yep. And
the
so
teaching hospital. Right.
But also across the US and into Canada, they're doing a lot of really cool, interesting research on the exploitable brain. Right? So what we know about incapacity, so when you're doing these mini mental status exams, right? So you're asked by your doctor to draw a clock face or spell world forward and backwards or to remember 3 things, and then in 2 minutes you're asked what those 3 things are.
Name the animals.
Right. These are mini mental status exams or a MOCA test, or there's several different types of clinical research that have produced these tests to help us understand, are you capacitated, are you incapacitated? And you may get a number score out of 30. Like,
and in guardianship, that's it.
That's it. So, that's the threshold. When you reach that threshold of incapacity, basically you can't manage your finances, you can't make decisions about where you live, you can't make medical decisions, all these things that are normal decisions that you might make. What we know is that we have this clinically research studied testing process so that we can assess that, right?
Exactly.
What we're learning is that that's usually around year 10 of brain changes.
So it's already been happening.
Right. The 10 years before that is where we're seeing the exploitability and the susceptibility to scams. And that thinning of the cortical insula in the brain is what it's been explained to me, is that, we kind of have this thinning in this inner part of our brain that basically prevents us from being able to understand the difference between the truth and a lie and the inability to assess risk.
Yipes.
Right? So that's where scams come into play. Somebody comes to you and says, we have this client who, she won $19 million from Publishers Clearinghouse.
Ouch.
But she doesn't have the ability to assess the veracity of that statement. And then when the guy comes to her door and says, hey, I'll take you to the bank, you can pay the taxes today, and your award goes from $19 million to $25 million, right? All you have to do is pay us $15,000 for the transfer taxes. And so she's on her way to get in the car with him. She lives in a facility, and her neighbor intervenes and is like, hey, what's going on? Because she knows about the susceptibility of this particular neighbor of hers. And so they were able to intervene and stop that process. But that's what's happening.
Wow.
That's what's happening. And this lady may have been very successful her entire life. She may have had every ability to assess risk.
But at this point.
Right. And it's what I like to tell people is intuition, right? So it's this what we call in yoga, I'm a yoga instructor, so it's the third eye, right? Mm-hmm. But it's also this part of your brain that tells you this is a scary situation, or it tells you when someone walks into the room, this is a person who you should stay away from. There's something negative about this. This is your intuitive knowing, right?
Gotcha.
So when this thinning of the cortical insula happens, you're cut off from that intuition. And so you really are very susceptible to suggestion.
You take things at face value without analyzing.
Right, without thinking historically.
There's no analysis.
Right. So it's a very scary time, and that's where we're finding this exploitability. Wow. Unfortunately, we don't have tests. There was this research study that was conducted at the University of Florida, and it was 36 people, and they were put under... they basically were subjected to the scam. Half of them took the bait, half of them didn't. They put everybody under the MRI, and they could see the thinning of the cortical insula in the brain.
And 100%.
100% of the people who fell victim to the scam. So, it's a very real thing, but the question is, clinically, how do we study it? How do we tell if somebody has this susceptibility or not? It's very challenging. So they're working on tools like the mini mental status exam or the MOCA test that's going to help us assess people for that exploitability. So where does that leave us today, right? So, we are living in this world where scams are and,
endless,
dementia.
Endless.
And then we have...
What is it, about $60 billion a year?
$60 billion a year is lost. And that's an AARP statistic from 2023. It has gone up exponentially since AI. But I want to talk about this book also, which is the Parkinson's Plan, because the other side of this epidemic, right? So we're having this epidemic of dementia, and what we're also seeing is this epidemic of Parkinson's disease.
If we wanted to get a copy of this book, what would we do? Is it Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
If you're an Amazon user, yes, but you can any bookstore, you can order these. They're very. This was actually the Parkinson's Plan was the product of the federal government. They actually retained funded by
research.
Yep. They asked Ray Dorsey and Michael Oken to put this together. And
both doctors,
and they've done this incredible job of creating really 25 ways to prevent Parkinson's that are mostly environmental issues.
You know what? I never thought that you could prevent Parkinson's.
I know.
I thought that Parkinson was genetic.
It's not.
You either had the gene or you didn't have the gene.
No.
And then the shakes start.
No. It is one of the least inherited diseases that you can get. Yep. There is some inherited ability, but when you look at the list, it is very low. What they're really finding is, do you live near a golf course? Were you a dry cleaner? Were you in the military? Were you near any Superfund sites? So it is
environmental.
Is literally most of the time it's environmental. But there are things that we can do to prevent Parkinson's disease.
I have to.
I know. I know.
My jaw just dropped.
And then even if we get that diagnosis, there are treatments now that are incredible for Parkinson's disease, including deep brain stimulation, where we start to kind of make those neuropathways open again. It's like a reduction in dopamine release, which if you know dopamine, it's like, yes, I love dopamine.
It's the happy.
Right? It's like oxytocin, dopamine. Right. You want that stuff.
The happy juice to the brain.
Right? So when that's reduced, obviously, you're not really having a good time. So the deep brain stimulation helps to mirror, and there's actually a medication that helps to, kind of create a dopamine release. And that's really how we start to treat Parkinson's. So the treatment plan involves occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. Parkinson's looks different in everybody. Parkinson's is not necessarily what's going to kill you. It's like these other diseases that come in once you have the diagnosis that can be very challenging to deal with, including this dementia issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're an attorney.
Right.
You're not giving medical advice.
No.
But you are very well versed in this because that's how you basically take a look at the holistic approach to your practice.
Yes.
Which is basically something that should be encouraged.
Right, because honestly, we're elder law attorneys. Our whole thing is to help people age and die better, right? That's why we went into the field of elder law. So we have to know how to be good health advocates. And if a client comes to me and their signature is super small and they're shuffling their feet and they have no facial expressions, did you know that those are all signs of Parkinson's disease?
Yikes.
So I'm not a doctor, and I'm not going to be saying, you have Parkinson's disease.
But I am send somebody.
Yeah, but I am going to say, maybe you should ask if this is something to look at, because there are very specific things that you can look for in Parkinson's and in other types of dementia.
It's not always just a shade.
No, it's not.
It's just a series.
Yeah, it's a lot of different things.
You get tipped.
Yeah. And what I love about Parkinson's is that once you start treating Parkinson's, it can create an entirely new life. Because can you imagine not having dopamine and then getting it? Right? Like you're going to feel so much better with your life. So like the treatment for Parkinson's can be life-changing for people.
Look how long Michael J. Fox has
I
lived.
know, right?
Of course, he still has the shakes.
Yes.
But still.
It's very hard.
From the interviews that I've seen, he's sharp.
Yes.
He's on the ball.
Yes. He's an amazing example of how to live with Parkinson's for a very long time. But, the nice thing about University of Florida in Gainesville is that we literally have one of the best Parkinson's treatment facilities in the world, because it's run by Dr. Oken and Kelly Foote, who is a brain surgeon who does the deep brain stimulation. And one of the things that they do that I wish we would do for every disease is that they do patient-centered care.
I see.
Okay? So you guys know, like when you go to the doctor normally, you're going to have to make a trip to the PT, to the OT, to the urologist, to the speech therapist, to, the nutritionist, all these things that would be necessary to treat someone with Parkinson's. Well, at the Fixel Institute in Gainesville, everybody comes to you. So you go to this room that's in the center of the building, and the occupational therapist comes in and does OT with you. And let me tell you about the OT for Parkinson's. You're going to be asked.
That's occupational therapy.
Yeah, you're going to be asked.
Oh, I fell, and I know what occupational therapy is.
Well, you think.
That's why I can move my hand.
You think so until you do Parkinson's occupational therapy. Because they're going to be asking you trivia questions while you're throwing a ball against the wall. So you're using these two different things in your brain, and you're like, but it opens these pathways in your brain, right? So like the speech pathology, the occupational therapy, the physical therapy, the nutrition.
Focused.
It's focused on Parkinson's. And what I love is that it's patient-centered. So everybody comes to the patient instead of you have to make 17 appointments, get in the car. You're playing Barbies on the bed, right, with your grandkids. You don't want to go to 17 appointments this week. You want to go to one appointment. And you want to get all your treatment at one time. This is how we should be treating seniors.
This is how healthcare should evolve.
Yes, it is.
Especially now that there's a trend towards hospitals having all the practitioners
Right.
and all the different disciplines.
Yes. Come to the patient.
Yeah.
It should be patient-centered. It shouldn't be I love doctors. My daughter's in med school right now, but I want her to come to the patient. I want us to realize that these are the people that are walking through this really hard part of their journeys. And, I do want to talk again about like this idea of creating a life when we have something like Parkinson's or other types of dementia or any other chronic illness. We do really want to focus on creating happiness in that person's life and also not bankrupting our caregivers.
Amen.
Right? So if you're a spouse caring for a spouse full time, what can happen is you're not doing self-care. And
Yep.
you're a house of
Yep.
cards. You're going to go down if you don't have help.
It'll be the domino
Right.
effect of
And
the
so
house of cards.
we need to always be remembering it's this person's journey, the patient, but we also need to look at those primary caregivers and make sure that they are doing self-care, that they have love in their life. And this is a hard thing to talk about, but this person may be dying, and we have to create a life for the spouse in order for them to survive the death of the person they're caring for. So we have to do some pre-grief counseling stuff before our patient dies. It's really important to create a life for this person because there is a 50% increase in death of the second spouse within the year after that first spouse dies. So we've got to create happiness and a life and an independent world that isn't just taking care of our person who's sick.
How important it is for lawyers to know and understand this process.
Yeah.
That is the way you should treat another human being.
Yeah, it is. We got to change it up. We got to do better.
Tell me, what are some of the things that the Parkinson plan deals with that we should do?
So it's a lot of environmental protection for yourself, like eating organic, washing produce before you eat it. If you can avoid using the dry cleaner, that would be a great idea. If you live near a golf course, you might want to move. That's like one of the biggest issues.
Wow.
Yeah. So the pesticides and fertilizers, and also checking your water, making sure that you have really good, clean water. If you're drinking it from the faucet, just be really careful and check it.
As opposed to the chemicals that are added?
So
Some of the chemicals.
So you just want to test your water that you're drinking. Like, just test it. It's not hard to do. But also, there are a ton of others. There's actually, in this book, there's 25 things that you can do to avoid Parkinson's. And so, I don't remember all of them, but it's a pretty substantial list. And I would just encourage people, read this book because
The Parkinson's plan.
And also, it is the future. This is the disease that's coming because we've seen this increase. I was just showing you when we were on the break. In 2021, the number of people with Parkinson's was none. And now we have 11.2 million. And it's only going up.
And the question that I asked was whether or not we were dealing with better ways to diagnose,
right,
or whether it was actually on the increase.
Yes.
And because of the... Wow.
Right. This is the increase. In 1990, there were 2.6 million. In 2015, there were 6.3 million. In 2021, that number is almost doubled to 11.8 million.
But because environmental factors have continued to...
And longer lifespans, So, you're going to have this accumulation of things in your body, like plastics. Plastics is another big one, is... the plastics that are coming off of water bottles or coming off of containers that we're eating.
Okay.
All of this stuff starts to accumulate. And then if you increase lifespan, that accumulation still accrues. And that's where we're starting to see these new diagnoses of Parkinson's as well.
From 1980 to 1986, let me disclose that I was counsel for a very large company of plastic reusable containers.
Well, I don't know if you want to make that disclosure right now, but
I have no choice. So what you're saying basically is that it is safer to go with glass than it is
the thing.
Plastic. So
because what we know also about some of the metal containers is that they're also covered in plastic. So like some of the metal containers are still emitting plastics for you. And sometimes what we found is that some of the metal water bottles are actually emitting more plastic than the plastic water bottles. So, glass would be ideal, but it's a challenge, and I think we're going to change. I think this kind of information is helpful to create evolution towards something that's safer.
And you know what? It helps us age smarter because the more that we take out the plastics out of our life, the potential for extending that life in a quality way.
And for our kids and our grandkids. Like, I just think about, I want them to have healthy food and healthy containers for their food. And maybe this is just like a reset for all of us to remember, like, just get back to basics. Yep. Whole foods, try and make things fresh, use organic. If you can grow a garden for yourself. Like, we have a big garden in my backyard that my dad does. And, I'm just realizing how valuable that is, farm to table.
Dads are good at that.
Yes.
My goodness.
It's lovely.
Tomatoes. Picking.
Yeah. Right? Yes. But also keeping him active. I mean, he's 86 years old and he walks 10,000 steps a day. Wow. And he and my neighbors literally work in that garden all the time. That's and excellent. Last night, they were figuring out when the freeze comes. They have this plastic thing that they put over. So I'm watching them moving their bodies and working together and problem solving and all these things. These are the things that help us thrive.
We have orchids that when the temperature falls below 55, we bring some of the more sensitive ones in. And and you know what? When you see, oh my God, my avocado tree. Ooh. I grew it from seed.
Wow.
The seed was from one of the avocados that my father sent me from Miami. And yes, it's taken about 7 years, 5 years on the ground, 2 years growing it in a pot.
Yeah.
But we had about a dozen.
Wow.
Humongous, beautiful, delicious
That's amazing.
Avocados. And
I've never had any success with avocados.
You know what?
But
I've got a number of seeds that are starting. I will send you a little tree once it blossoms.
That sounds lovely. My dad would love it, but I kill everything, so you don't want me to have it. But my dad would definitely.
We'll send it for your dad to baby.
Yes.
So again, thank you for helping us age smarter. That's all for this episode of Aging Smarter. If you found today's conversation helpful, please share it with a colleague or a loved one. The content of this podcast serves as general information and should not be considered legal advice or medical advice. Contact your local lawyer or doctor to find out more. Or also, take a look at Amazon and get that book. It'll help you plan to stay healthy. Laws often change and differ, again, by circumstance and location. So again, this is not legal advice. Contact your own lawyer. The information provided also may not be specific to your situation. No attorney-client privilege or no attorney-client relationship is established. Consult a licensed attorney in your area for legal advice. I'm retired former circuit judge Jose Rodriguez. Thank you for listening, and remember, compassion, clarity are the cornerstones of aging smarter. We want to thank our showrunner, Art Miles, our producer, Annie Rodriguez Newbern, and the firm of Rodriguez, Tangle & Associates, on whose support we count upon on a regular basis. Don't forget to give us a like and to subscribe. And again, you can reach us or you can review this podcast by going online to the Senior Resource Alliance website. The Resource Alliance is our AAA, our area agency on aging, that provides all kinds of assistance in the 4 county areas of Orange, Osceola, Brevard, and Seminole. Thank you for watching.